Let me ask you something. How would you feel if the next time you went to your bank, you were told, "Sorry, you can't take out that much cash today"? Not because you don't have the money, but because the bank decided to put a limit on it. Sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? But this is exactly what's starting to happen across the UK, and if you're over 65, you need to pay close attention. For decades, cash has been the lifeline for pensioners, whether it's paying at the corner shop, slipping a few notes to the grandkids, or simply having money in your pocket for peace of mind. But banks are moving faster than ever toward a cashless system, and guess who's being squeezed the most? It's not the young ones who tap everything with a card, it's the older generation. Think about it, branches closing left and right, ATMs disappearing from local communities, and now these new restrictions on withdrawals. Many pensioners are waking up to find that the way they've managed their money their whole life is suddenly being challenged. And the scariest part? Most people don't even realize it's happening until it affects them directly. But here's the good news, you don't have to be caught off guard. In this video, I'm going to explain exactly what these new withdrawal limits mean, how they could impact you, and the steps you can take right now to protect your access to cash. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about money, it's about freedom, control, and independence in your retirement. So stick with me, because what you'll learn today could save you a lot of stress down the line. And before we jump in, do me a quick favor, hit that like button. It really helps this video reach more pensioners across the UK who need this information just as much as you do. Now let's dive straight into what's really happening behind the scenes, because these new restrictions aren't just random rules banks are pulling out of thin air. There's a much bigger picture here, and it has everything to do with the way our financial system is changing. Over the last few years, we've seen a dramatic push towards digital banking. That means more card payments, more online transfers, and fewer people handling cash on a daily basis. For younger generations, this might feel normal. They rarely carry notes or coins. But for those over 65, for pensioners who grew up with cash as the foundation of everyday life, this shift can feel not just confusing, but deeply unsettling. The banks argue that people don't need cash in the same way anymore, and that withdrawing large sums can even be risky. They talk about fraud, scams, and safety concerns as reasons to encourage digital transactions. But here's the truth many don't want to say out loud. Handling cash costs banks money. It costs to move it, to insure it, to stock it in ATMs, and to staff branches. And when you look at it from their perspective, limiting cash access makes perfect business sense. But here's the problem. It may make sense for the banks, but it doesn't make sense for you, for pensioners who rely on the certainty of being able to take their own money out whenever they need it. Think for a moment about the simple daily routines you or someone you know might have. You head into town on a Friday morning, pop into your branch to withdraw your weekly spending money, and maybe stop for a chat with a teller who recognizes you. It's not just banking, it's part of your life, part of your independence. Now imagine that branch is closed, the nearest ATM is several miles away, and even then, you're told you can only withdraw a smaller amount than you planned. Suddenly, you're left feeling powerless, frustrated, and maybe even embarrassed. And all of this, while the money is sitting right there in your account. And let's not forget, not everyone is comfortable with online banking or mobile apps. Many pensioners prefer the security of seeing cash in their wallet rather than numbers on a screen. And honestly, who can blame them? Digital banking comes with its own risks, scams, fraud, and technical glitches. One small mistake with a computer or phone can cause enormous stress. Cash, on the other hand, feels real, tangible, and reliable. Yet with each new restriction, that sense of reliability is being chipped away. So, what do these withdrawal limits actually look like? For some, it might mean a cap on how much can be taken out at an ATM in a single day. For others, it could mean that in-branch withdrawals are questioned or slowed down, especially if the amount seems unusual. Banks will often dress this up as protecting the customer from scams, but the reality is it's another barrier between you and your money. Imagine wanting to withdraw a larger sum for a family event, maybe a wedding gift or home repairs, and being made to feel suspicious just for asking. It's demeaning, and it chips away at the dignity that every pensioner deserves. The consequences of these changes ripple out further than most people realize. For example, cash plays a vital role in local economies. Small businesses, tradespeople, and market stalls often rely on cash payments. If pensioners, who are among the biggest users of cash, find it harder to withdraw, those local businesses also suffer. It's not just an inconvenience, it can affect entire communities. And when communities lose their access to cash, they often lose something even bigger: their sense of connection and trust in the system. Now, I know some people might be thinking, well, I'll just adapt. I'll learn to do everything online. And for some, that's possible. But we can't ignore the fact that a huge number of pensioners either don't have the skills, the technology, or even the internet connection to manage everything digitally. And honestly, why should they be forced to change the way they've managed money their entire lives, just because banks want to save money? It's not fair, and it's not right. What makes this situation even more concerning is the speed at which it's happening. Every month, it seems like another bank announces more branch closures, another community loses its only ATM, and another set of restrictions quietly slips into place. Pensioners are often the last to know, and by the time the news reaches them, the rules are already being enforced. This lack of transparency is what makes people feel betrayed. After all, you trusted your bank for decades, and now that trust feels broken. It's also worth considering spreading your money across different accounts or even different banks. Some institutions are stricter than others when it comes to limits, and having options gives you more control. For many pensioners, building a small safety net of cash at home is also a way to feel secure. Of course, you don't want to keep too much because of theft risks, but having enough to cover unexpected expenses can bring peace of mind. And perhaps most importantly, don't be afraid to speak up. Banks often say they act in the best interests of their customers, but if enough people voice their concerns, they are forced to listen. Writing letters, joining community groups, or even contacting your MP can help raise awareness about how these restrictions impact pensioners specifically. The more noise we make, the harder it becomes for banks and policymakers to ignore. This brings us to another vital point: government regulation. In recent years, there has been growing pressure on the government to protect access to cash, especially for older people and vulnerable communities. In fact, some measures have already been discussed to ensure that banks continue to provide reasonable cash access. But as with all politics, progress is slow, and unless the public continues to demand action, the issue risks being pushed aside. So where do we go from here? The answer isn't simple, but it starts with awareness, preparation, and collective voice. If pensioners stay silent, these changes will continue unchecked. But if more and more people start talking about it, sharing their experiences, and demanding answers, banks and the government will be forced to respond. Remember, there is strength in numbers, and pensioners are one of the most powerful groups in the country when it comes to influence. And here's the bottom line: your money is your money. You've worked hard for it, saved for it, and managed it carefully over the years. No one should make you feel like you don't have the right to access it freely. Withdrawal limits may be dressed up as protection or modernization, but for many pensioners, they feel like control. Control that takes away choice, independence, and dignity. And that's why it's so important to stay alert, stay informed, and stay vocal. By the end of this video, I hope you feel not just concerned, but empowered. Because yes, the landscape is changing, but that doesn't mean you have to be left behind. Together, by sharing knowledge, looking out for each other, and speaking up, pensioners can make sure their voices are heard. So keep watching, because in just a moment, I'm going to share some very practical tips on how you can make sure you always have the access to cash you need, no matter what your bank decides to do.